So today I'm going to move on from motivation and identity and talk about values. So I spoke about values being really important when it comes to having, well, not just having an identity, but living the life that we want to live and not really being dragged into a different identity or a different way of living that's kind of not really aligned to who we are. Because anytime there's incongruence between who we are or how we feel at a sort of very deep subconscious level and what we're actually doing, there's going to be issues, there's going to be internal pain because there's internal conflict about who we are and what we're doing if they're not aligned or there's incongruence there. So today I'm going to talk a little bit more around values. So I've spoken about values before, there's a lot of stuff around values, but just to sort of take another look at it because it has a huge impact on the way that we live our lives. So our values are more of just kind of a set of principles or some standards that we live our life by, or what we see as being important as the way we conduct ourselves within our environment as in we go throughout the world. So your values are kind of like a judgment of what's important to you within your life. It's how you kind of decide how you're going to act, how you align your behaviours to what you feel is important. And it just works as kind of a moral compass sometimes around the way you should conduct your life. So when we talk about values, it's not really having a set of values for work, having a set of values for home, having a set of values when you're on holidays or anything like that. Your values are kind of your values. And it's suggested that you kind of only have 2 to 3 values. If you have too many values, then there's too many principles or there's too many rules, and it kind of gets a little bit murky around how you should act, or you sort of start to get a little bit of grey area in there when it comes to how you should conduct yourself. So if you can work out what your values are, and there's a number of different ways of defining your values. Okay, there's value cards, there's writing it down and then picking 10 values and then picking down to 5 and then narrowing that down to 2 or 3. It's a number of different ways you can go about doing it. I'm not going to focus on how to actually do the values, just the fact that it's quite important. So if we don't really know what our values are, then we're more likely to just take on default values around society or other people. So the default behaviours or values that we kind of have are more aligned to money, finance and power. So a lot of people, if they don't know what their values are or they don't have strong values, then they're either trying to accumulate wealth, they're trying to get in positions of power, or they're trying to accumulate fame. And you can see a lot of that going on within society is people have put over importance, or they're over indexing on their social media fame, or they're over indexing on their financial income, or trying to get into occupational positions of management or up the sort of hierarchical ladder so they can be in positions of power. But they're not values. Okay, they're things that people seek when they don't have values, or often they're trying to escape scarcity or feelings of pain or discomfort around other insecurities or gaps in their life. So if we can work out what our values are, and we can also make them part of our decision-making process, or we can sort of use them as a decision guide. So if I have strong values, and when I sort of come under those values, I start to define what sits under each value, and family becomes important as part of one of my values. If I'm in a position where I have to make a decision around work or family, and family is a value or it's part of a value, and work is more of just a behaviour around getting some income or sort of doing something that is for somebody else, then it's easy for me to decide over family. If I have to choose work, then that's not really aligned to my values. So it's going to create a little bit of internal conflict, and it's going to create some negative emotional feelings around that. So I need to understand when and where I'm choosing to go against my values, when I'm willing to sacrifice or compromise on my values, and when my values are important and I need to hold up against them. So if I can make those choices and I understand them, then that's going to decrease any of that, and then that's going to decrease any of that negative emotional pain that I'm going to feel when I go against my values. And also when we have strong values and we know what they are, and they're more aligned to us being the best versions of ourselves, or us providing for other people or helping out or contributing, and when we're being more courageous and authentic and a number of other different positive things, then we're more likely to have increased resilience and mental strength, because we're more likely to be moving forward on a path through positive friction, trying to achieve what we want to achieve. And we're going to push through that because what is on the other side of that has strong value to us, so it's going to keep us well motivated, as opposed to when we don't understand our values and we're just moving around finance, money, or when we're moving around money, power or fame, then there's low motivation to us for that, because we're moving away from something. We're moving away from a negative emotional state. So when things get difficult, we're going to feel like we have less mental strength or less resilient. We're going to be distracted easier. We're going to we're going to find it increasingly difficult to stay on that path because there's no value to it. It doesn't have any deep, meaningful value to us. It's not part of sort of the why in why we get out of bed or who we are. So if we can understand what our values are, if we can start to define what's important to us, then we can align our behaviours with what's important to us, and we can sort of clean up a lot of the clutter around that. So we can start to reduce the amount of unnecessary stress that we're exposed to, so that we're only pushing into the friction that we need to, because like I've said before, exposure is very beneficial to us. There's a lot of positives around pushing into exposure or pushing into adversity. It's just that we need time to relax or reduce that exposure on the other side. So once we've got good values, we can work out what's important, what we need to lean into, and what we can just let go because it's not important to us. So I hope that helps you understand a little bit around another way to think about values and its role in identity and motivation. And it starts to bring these concepts together so you can work out the best way that you can now start to go about living the life that you want.